if Dumjid taught me anything from, watching GeneX, is that you can be racist without using a single vulgarity. Hey, what's going on, guys? I'm Mr. 4 here. Today I am back to cover, you probably guessed it by now, it is Dumjid in Blademaster Souen. Now, for those who don't know or just don't recognize, Dumjid is actually back in V-Series as a VPRPG. That's a grade 1. So that's a huge deal, at least for some people. Now, who is Dumjid? Dumjid was the PG that was around during the later part of the end of the Blaze era for G era for Dragonic Blademaster, who got a Strike version during the entire Premium Collection 2021 when V first ended and all, if I'm not mistaken. And then of course now near the end of this year, Halloween, he's come back as as a PR. He's come in the form of V Series Dumjid. And it's interesting because, as Dumjid progresses, he tends to get more and more aggressive. In the old series, he was more about protecting himself. He was very, very defense-oriented. In V series, he wants to try and make do for his mistakes. He's going on into a strike to try and avenge what he did wrong in the show, and how, he tries and uses his old sentinels to give himself power. But then in V, he just completely back wheels all the way, and he's now focused on purely killing the opponent by being the first earliest aggression PG on the planet. So literally speaking, this card has a lot of weird and confusing history, which is why I've actually put a link in the description below for this video that I found on a YouTuber covering on Dumjid's history. It's in Japanese, but if you are able to understand it, or if you happen to have the gift of Google Translate, I feel that it will be very enriching for you if you're the kind of person that actually enjoys reading about lore, or you just happen to also have some form of a personal connection to Dumjid, whether you're a burning racist, a war victim, or you just enjoy playing Kagero. So today we are going to be covering specifically Dragonic Blademaster Souen, as well as Dumjid, more of how it was done back in the old days. Dumjid is very interesting because Dumjid can be played in every Kagero deck. But I think the question is more of why would you play it in every Kagero deck? Because there are certain restrictions to him, there are certain things that you should know about Dumjid when actually playing this deck, which is why I've also linked my old V Blademaster Souen deck profile in the description below. You can also check out that link. And yeah, let's actually get into it. Moving to our grade 3s, we obviously play 4 copies of Dragonic Blademaster Souen, who is the main avatar of this deck, and then we play 3 copies of the Dragon Knight Ishak. I want to really go into this because this is quite interesting. Why are we doing this? Why is it done the way that we do? Very simple. Dragonic Blademaster Souen is the main card of this deck, and yes, between the 3 years that I have not shown this deck, I actually got myself an SP. Dragonic Blademaster Souen, during your turn, as long as your opponent has no rear guards, both this card and Vision gain 10,000 power. Vision is referring to the Vision token that you can generate with his skill. What skill? The second skill is, once per turn, you can discard 2 cards from your hand and summon a Dragonic Blademaster Vision token from outside the deck. Then if you have both Garan and Doha on the field, so you need Doha, and then you also need Garan on the field, you can retire all of your opponent's rear guards. So in just discarding 2 cards from your hand, you get an instant board nuke as long as you fulfill the board condition, and you get a free Vision token. What does the Vision token do? He's going to be a 13, or in this case 23k attacking unit, and his skill is very simple. This unit cannot be put into an actual deck, and when he attacks, he performs Twin Drive. But at the end of the turn, Vision will leave the field. Vision is like a stand if you've watched the V anime. So yeah, it's pretty nice that it's just a quick 23k beater that refunds the 2 cards you just discarded for the board nuke, and then at the end of the turn he just disappears, and you can resummon it again on the following turn, which is not bad. But as a backup retiring card, we also play the Dragon Knight Ishak. Ishak is a card that I've grown to love a lot more as I progressed playing post VBTO8 Kagero. And for a lot of good reasons, Ishak, I would say, is a secret backbone of Kagero the same way Dauntless is. And his skills are very simple. As long as your opponent has no rear guards, he gains 10,000 power on both V or R. Counter Blast 1 is an X skill. Choose one of your opponent's rear guards and retire it. If you have 2 or more grade 3 units, you can retire 2 instead of 1. That's very interesting. Why would they count the number of grade 3s on the board? It's such an interesting design. I've never would have saw this coming. So yeah, Ishak is really used more as just a backup burner, a 23k beater, or even if sadly you have to last resort for a secondary ride. Of course, if you really need to, or if you happen to have the luxury of space, you could even play the old Dragonic Blademaster, who in this case will be slightly better as a vanguard because, you know, as long as you have no, your opponent does not have any rear guards, he gains 5,000 power and an extra crit, which is a callback to his original Generation Break 2. But because of the fact that, you know, we are playing in more compact matters, we're playing faster than ever, Ishak generally can fit the bill as long as you're able to pull out a Dragonic Blademaster Souen into the Vanguard circle. Moving on to our grade 2s. Our grade 2s, we obviously play 4 copies of the Wyvern Strike Doha, we play 3 copies of Break Breath Dragon, and then we play 4 copies of Dragon Dancer Soldier. Yeah, this is, of course, as you can tell, the deck is still pretty streamlined. We play 3 copies of Break Breath because it's a Kagero generic. When rode upon by a grade 3 unit, you can choose one of your opponent's rear guards and retire it. If you can't, you draw a card. Oh, okay, not bad. And then at the end of the turn that this unit was there, you can retire this unit if your opponent had a rear guard retired, and you can draw 1 card. So it's just a nice quick 1-for-1 draw, or even as a right target, you can even just get a free draw or get a free snipe. Because if you ride upon him and your opponent still has rear guards, you can just burn 1 off for free. So in that case, it really saves you from using stuff like Ishak. If your opponent only has 1 or less rear guards, but you want to clear the board for Blademaster's condition, and yeah, it just comes off nicely. It's not the greatest application in the world, but it is more of a fodder spot because you don't really have many grade 2s in Kagero to begin with. But speaking of grade 2s that were designed for our deck, we obviously have Soldier, I think it's Soldier or Faja. Yeah, so basically what she does is very simple. She looks at the top 5 cards of the deck, and then afterwards she can look for a copy of either Wyvern Strike. This refers to Wyvern Strike Doha or Wyvern Strike Garan, as I previously pointed out, and then you can just add it to the hand. It's completely free. That's the best part. It's completely free. Just place it on VRR, and then her second skill is that, you know, when during your turn, if your opponent has no rear guards, Faja gains an additional 5,000 power. Very simple, 15k beater. It is good for early aggression because you don't really have cards on the board because you want to use Blademaster's vision. But riding this is a great idea, calling this is a great idea. Just using Faja at any point in the game is just good. And then of course, our last grade 2 is Wyvern Strike Doha, the greatest card in every Rebirth deck. Really? Just kidding. So his skills are very simple. When placed on a rearguard circle, you can counterblast 1, search your deck for Wyvern Strike Garan, and call it to the rearguard. So this is how you guarantee both Garan and Doha on the field. It is, yeah, that simple. In addition, when he attacks, if your opponent has no rearguards, your opponent cannot guard with normal units to the guarding circle. So they can guard with blitz orders, they can guard with, you know, the triggers, but that's generally about it. You generally just block off all form of normal units. Do note that Garan is actually a 9k base, so he's actually a lot weaker than the rest of Force, you know, units. So boosting him with Garan, who's a 13k booster, it only brings you up to 22k, which generally demands 1 trigger. Unless you are playing, you know, Excel Protect, then you're gonna need a bit more than that. But that kind of matches the numbers until you pull off some triggers with stuff like your Blademaster or your Vision. So I generally won't be too concerned, but it is the lowest attacking unit on the board in terms of having Doha and Garan together, so it's something worth noting. However, given that Doha and Garan are critical pieces to Blademaster, there's just no way you can actually not play them in a deck. And moving on to our grade 1s, we play 4 copies of Flare Trooper Dumjid, Lava Flow Dragon, and of course 4 copies of the Wyvern Strike Garan, and then we also play 4 copies of the Dragon Knight Hishan. Wow, seeing this lineup really sets me back. It's almost as if I'm really back in 2017. So let's break it down real quick. Wyvern Strike Garan, as we've discussed in great detail, is a 13k booster as long as your opponent has no rearguards. However, he can also work as 13k attacker even in the early game, so keep that in mind. His second skill is when he boosts Wyvern Strike Doha and the attack hits, counterblast 1 and draw and soul charge 1. So you trade 1 counterblast for a draw and soul charge. It's important seeing the rest of the grade 1 lineup, so keep this in mind. Speaking of 13k solo attackers, we have Lava Flow Dragon. Lava Flow Dragon is, as long as you have more rear guards than opponent, he gains 5000 power. Lava Flow Dragon, in addition, also has another very handy skill, which is his basic top 5 search for a grade 3. Lava Flow is the thematic searcher for Dragonic Blademaster in V, so it should come as no surprise that he can also still do the same for Blademaster in V as he did in G. So yeah, it's quite nice. He just looks at top 5, he has a grade 3 to hand. Generally you are looking for Blademaster, and then after that, that's about it. Other than that, he's still a fast 30k attacker, 13k booster, no reason not to play 4. Then we'll move on to the star of the show. It's Flare Trooper Dumjid. Dumjid has a 7k base, grade 1. You generally just do not want to ride him. If you ride him, you lost the duel. Dumjid on the rear guard circle, you can Soul Blast 1, and when your Vanguard is attacked, you can slide this to the Guardian circle instead. And when he's on the Guardian circle, you discard a card from your hand, choose one of your units, it cannot be attacked. Yeah, that's really about it. It's just a moving PG for the cost of 1 Soul Blast. That's why I asked you to take note of why we strike Garan, because Garan fuels the soul for Dumjid. And in addition, he's just a basic PG. He's a grade 1 PG, so he does actually get around a lot of restrictions on, you can't guard grade 0s, oh, Dumjid's a grade 1, oh, you need to guard with 2 more cards from hand, oh, I can just, move this from the rear guard circle. So yeah, this Dumjid really helps Kagero fight off a lot of matchups that it generally couldn't before. However, because it's a Sentinel, you are actually giving up your draw PG slots. So as you can see, I have chosen to opt for a certain trigger route. You could opt for a different trigger route, but you do need to keep in mind that Dumjid is still taking up slots in your main monster lineup, which could impact some people, and why some people may choose to just end up playing Bari or whatnot. And of course, we have the Dragonic Hishap. The Dragonic Hishap, when placed on rear guard circle, counter +1, so +1. Choose one of my opponent's rear guards and retire it, and draw 1 card. It has to be specifically a back row rear guard, by the way. Okay, second skill is when roll a pawn, look at the top 5 cards of the deck, add a grade 3 from among them to the hand, and shuffle the deck. Yeah, it's all just great all-around pressure and plusing. So that's the reason why this guy is a Kagero generic and quite important in Kagero decks. Our grade 0s as well as triggers, we play obviously Wyvern Kid Routler. We play 4 heal guards because you don't really need early damage in his deck, so you're really fine to do this. We also play a lineup of 12 criticals. Yeah, that's really about it, because as you probably would have guessed it, we want to go more aggressive with stuff like Dumjid. We might as well just live up to it. We need to make sure that Dumjid's early presence on the board, as well as generally anything you put on the board, can all just attack and start swarming. Of course, you run into another control matchup. The point is you have to be more measured in your aggression, and hopefully you don't get out control or just out tempo. Generally speaking, this deck, as you can tell, most of the cards are not restrained to a certain turn, with the exception of Dohan Karan, so you can generally push back. And that basically summarizes my thoughts on Dragonic Blademaster Souen with Dumjid. I really don't know if Dumjid is going to end up being a key piece, like I said, but it's interesting to see how Kagero players will choose to adopt this into their strategy, altering their trigger ratios, or generally just changing the way Kagero as a whole adapts to the whole V meta, or even in premium meta even. Will you stand to try and survive like Dumjid, or will you hop in and bash their face until they perish? God knows what you pick, but remember, we're all human. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.